Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sarah and I would like to welcome you to learn how to boost your paid search ROI with Bing and Yahoo Search. In the room with me I have Matt Hessler.
Hello.
And we also have a guest speaker from Microsoft, John.
Hey everyone.
John. And they'll introduce themselves a little bit more in just a minute, but very excited about our presentation today. You'll learn how to reach a new audience, increase conversions, drive down your CPA, all kinds of good stuff. So, throughout the presentation, you will be hopefully gaining all kinds of knowledge and wisdom about paid search and specifically about adCenter and Bing and Yahoo Search. So for a chance to win a $25 gift certificate to Amazon.com, go ahead and tweet things that you hear about the things that will help you with your paid search with the hashtag Trada for adCenter. And you know, Mother's Day is coming up.
Who doesn't want to get mom a new book or something good from Amazon for
right?
$25?
Could be ahead of the curve even.
There you go.
Who shops this early? Perfect. So yeah, anytime, multiple times throughout the webinar, go ahead and tweet about it. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our expert speakers today. First, we have John. He's Senior SEM Manager and a Bing Advertising Evangelist from Microsoft. John, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. I just have a quick question. Our speakers, can we be eligible for that gift card? I don't know.
I don't think so, John.
That's a little disappointing.
If you tweet a whole lot, your chances might go up, but I think you can still eliminate.
Got to be really good.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you know, everyone, I'm really excited that you're here and you're on this webinar. You know, first, I think that search advertising just in general is a fantastic way to grow your business, and there's a lot of different things that you can do, and I think the expertise that Trada's optimizers bring to the table is quite a bit, and so I think there's a lot of great things we're going to be covering. A little bit about myself. I've actually been at Microsoft at Search for 4 years now, and I'm a Bing evangelist, a Bing advertising evangelist, and so I have an awesome job. I get to talk to a lot of small businesses, really understand the business and partner with them and figure out what the best search strategy is to get everything into Bing and Yahoo. Before actually the evangelist role, I was basically, you can think of me as the advertising consultant to all of the internal Microsoft product groups, so Hotmail, Windows, Office. When they needed something for Bing and Yahoo and keyword search and ad copy and all those different strategies, I was the person that they talked to. And so I definitely have a lot of expertise in adCenter, but before working for adCenter and Microsoft, I actually used to work for Google in their SMB group. And so definitely really familiar with all the different products that we have there, and really excited again to be here. I love search, and I'm really glad that you're here.
Great. Well, we're really excited to have you. Thanks so much, John, for joining us. And also, Matt Hessler, who's the Director of Marketplace Operations here at Trada.
Hello, all. Also happy to be here. If you're familiar with some of our Trada webinar series, you may have heard my voice in the past covering kind of good tips and tricks to maximize search in general. Longtime search veteran. I think I've been doing this since about 2001, 2002, so in search years, that makes me a very old soul. So excited to have
beyond your years.
That's right, to have John on the call and talk about a few ways that, you know, the changes that are going on at Bing and adCenter and some of the really good value that they're bringing for people that kind of see that as an untapped resource.
Right on. And also, I wanted to mention that if you have questions that come up either now or anytime through the presentation, please go ahead and write them into the chat box. And you'll see Alexandra Vaquero. She is also here. She's a marketing manager here at Trada, and she will field your questions, and we'll either answer them as we go, or if not, then John and Matt will get to them at the end. So ask away.
Yeah, and you know, definitely want to encourage that, whether it's stuff you see in the presentation or you just want to take advantage of, you know, the search knowledge of the presenters, myself, John, Sarah, any questions you have about Bing Yahoo, about adCenter, you know, save them for the end. We want this to be interactive, and we find that that's the most fun and hopefully the most rewarding for you folks that are listening in.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Topic for today is Microsoft Advertising, adCenter, and the Search Alliance. So in order to really tailor our talk to you, we want to start off with a poll. So go ahead and ask you guys what your current experience with Bing and Yahoo search is. Are you a current advertiser? Have you advertised on Bing and Yahoo search in the past, but you're not right now? If you haven't done it before, but you would like to going forward, or do you just love search? Are you just a fan and not actually advertising anything? And of course, there's that last option.
I'll be really interested to see where people are at with this. Oh, good.
Yeah, me too. Wow.
Looks like answers, yeah, still coming in, but a lot of current advertisers, which is good to see.
Right on.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Perfect. So we'll really
Fantastic.
be able to dig in with some details and some advanced practices here. Okay, great.
Well, excellent, excellent. I mean, I'm really, really glad to see that almost half of you are actual current advertisers with adCenter. You know, it's really exciting because right now, I've been at Microsoft, like I said, for 4 years, but one of the things that I'm seeing is I've never seen so many changes come through on adCenter. It's a really great time. There are so many changes coming through on negative keywords, on how we handle ad copy, and how things are actually, the features as far as usability in the UI have actually changed. I think there's just so much that's actually happened. So really excited for that. We'll definitely talk about a lot of those details a little bit later. So, you know, the Search Alliance, a few years ago, a year and a half ago, this kind of was unveiled and out in the market. But the Search Alliance is made up of Bing and Yahoo and two great search engines. Search at Microsoft's really changed with Bing. Bing has been a fantastic search engine. One of the things that Bing's really kind of gone for is, we've talked about it being a decision engine, but really Bing is about doing. Because ultimately, when you're looking at a search engine, what you're trying to do is get a real-world decision made, whether that's finding a plumber, looking for information, maybe you're just kind of seeing what's going on with local celebrities. There's a lot of different things that you can do, but what you're trying to accomplish is make a decision or entertain yourself and get some kind of information. It's not just searching for the sake of searching. And we've really gone into a couple of different experiences and try to make those as great as possible. And one really powerful experience, and one of the things that we're doing is our integration with Facebook. And Facebook's information and social graph is fantastic. And as you can see here, this is actually a screenshot from my wife. And she actually is looking for a local yoga studio in Bellevue. And so she's thinking about going. She was wondering what she was going to be doing, and so she did a search on Bing. And one of the cool things about Bing is you can actually be signed into Facebook with Bing, and that's going to give all that Facebook information and bring it into the search results.
So really help narrow those options to help you make that decision to find the specific answer you're looking for.
Exactly. And one of the things is she was looking at this Shakti Yoga studio, and she saw, after she did the search, that one of her friends actually liked the studio. And so it just helps her kind of make that decision. You know, I'm thinking about going. I want information. Now I know that one of my friends likes it. I think this is a good place to start.
Right.
So this is one of the
cool.
great things we're doing.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, John. And tell us a little bit about the reasons why people search on Yahoo.
Yeah, so, you know, Yahoo is great. They actually are the third most visited site in the U.S. They have 10 #1 properties. I go there a lot for sports and finance, fantasy. And so it's such a starting point for the web. And they bring a lot to the table, and they bring tons of users to the table. And they're, again, 10 #1 properties. I think there's so many places that people are starting and then looking for more information on all the things that they're reading and gathering.
And some of the kind of anecdotal that I've seen, you know, in my years of search is Yahoo specifically really strong for driving consumer product traffic, because it's a lot of those types of people. You know, if you're maybe hardcore B2B, it's a bit of a mix, but Yahoo's great with, you know, that huge segment of consumers that are there. They're starting by, you know, looking at product searches. They're doing the same thing you are. They're going to the sports and the finance stuff, and you reach a really deep consumer market with the Yahoo traffic.
Yeah, almost,
yeah, no,
you know, really targeted. You can target your messaging, your ads more specifically to what people are looking for, to where they are in the cycle, and as well as, you know, the vertical, et cetera.
Yep.
Nice. All right. So Microsoft Advertising AdCenter, is kind of the machine behind both search engines. So you create and manage all of your campaigns on Bing and Yahoo from this one platform. So let's talk about why you want to use AdCenter. What are the main value propositions that you get by including AdCenter as part of in your overall paid search campaign? We're going to talk about reaching a new audience, how to increase your conversion rate, and really just improving your overall ROI. All right, John. So tell us about the audience. Who do you get through Bing and Yahoo search?
It's a really cool audience, and like you said, there's a lot of people coming to Bing and Yahoo for specific things, travel, local searches for what I was talking about with the yoga studio, and then for sports and finance. So there's a lot of people coming to the sites already for many different reasons. And one of the great things is that we just have a huge audience. In the U.S., we're a third of all searches, 30% to a third of all searches, and 162 million unique searches. I mean, searchers. That's a huge audience.
Right, and of those audience members, a lot of them are only reachable through this channel.
Yeah, surprise, not everybody uses Google. In fact, if you're just using Google, then you'd be missing out on 54 unique million searchers. And, that's a number that I didn't even, honestly, it's something that we, over the last year or two, we've really been focusing on because it's such a big piece of the overall pie, and honestly, I didn't know it was that big.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge audience. I mean, there was a time when that number alone would have justified a complete digital marketing strategy, and now search as a total entity has gotten so big. People need to run these big complex campaigns, but if you're missing those 54 million unique searchers, that's a big piece of the pie that can really help you expand your efforts. And from at least what we've seen, they do have different behaviors. A lot of times, I think with the whole Bing is for doing kind of concept, it's not just marketing hyperbole. You guys make the path from the starting point of the search to completing an action a little bit shorter. So people really are doing, and if you're a marketer that's trying to drive a specific type of conversion, that Bing is for doing mentality will really help, and you may see in your vertical higher conversion rates.
Yeah, no, and that's totally true. It's definitely something where we've really tried to work on something we call task completion, but just getting things done in the real world that you need to get done as quickly as possible. And we've seen time and time again, we've slowly just, every month been growing and growing and growing. And it has to do with this fact that users are getting the information that they want, and they're getting things done and moving on.
And that really ties into, the real value proposition for advertisers, and that's increasing the conversion rate on your ads through Bing and Yahoo.
Yeah, and one of the things that and I'll just tell you actually, so I'm going to Toronto in July, and so I was doing a search for flights to Toronto, and one of the things that was cool. We bought this company called Faircast a few years ago, and they do this predictive analysis on flight prices and everything. And so I did a search on Bing, and you can do this right now, and it'll actually tell you, hey, you should wait to buy this ticket, or you should buy now because we think prices are going up. In my case, actually, it said to wait, which I thought planning ahead would actually give me a better price, but it told me to wait. So I was like, okay, I'm going to wait a little bit so I can save some money. And so, that's just, So, I mean, those are the different types of things. And we've taken lots of different verticals and different, use cases and things like that, maps and local. Travel's a really strong one, shopping, entertainment, and try to do a lot of these little things to help you get things done online. And that's going to help improve the value of the clicks you'd be receiving as an advertiser. And the information from the industry really shows that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I've used Bing in the same way. I probably was a little, later adopter to Bing as a platform. I felt like it was really important as a search marketer who, runs a lot of campaigns on AdCenter to start spending more time as a user. And honestly, the more you use it, the more you find little interesting things that Bing does that Google doesn't offer that make it a really sharp experience. You can get from point A to point B for whatever you're looking for pretty quickly. I really like the travel thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it really seems like adCenter has been very focused on improving the advertiser experience, the user experience, and getting people, not just searchers, to find the answers they're looking for, but really making it easier for advertisers as well to target their ads in those industries and have tools and features that make it easier to improve their conversion rates. But yeah, Matt, tell us about what we've experienced here at Trada.
So it's interesting. We haven't given much background on Trada. Trada is a search marketplace. We've got a crowdsourced solution that takes a crowd of search experts, and we set up campaigns for advertisers. We do run those campaigns across both Google and Search Alliance. We typically start with proportions that are kind of proportionate to market share. So most of our campaigns start off with a 70% budget allocation to Google and a 30% budget allocation to Bing Yahoo. What we do from there is we start to look at how the campaign's performing. What kind of conversion rates are we getting on both engines? What kind of conversion volume? What are we spending? Are the costs per click a little cheaper? As we do that analysis, and we do it algorithmically, once we have some data, about every 2 weeks we look at reproportioning those budgets. And what we're finding is more and more we're shifting budget to the Bing Yahoo Search Alliance as it's actually showing better performance, better ROI for our customers. So in the last, I think we looked at over, 2 or 3 of these 2-week intervals, we saw 43% of campaigns having a greater percent of their budget allocated to adCenter. And when we're doing those allocations, we're actually allocating a greater percentage. So it's a little bit of a complex concept, but if I was starting at 70-30, what we're finding is on average we add about an additional 8%. So the campaigns that do perform better on Search Alliance do so at a much higher level. So instead of just moving 2 or 3% more budget, we tend to move them in average increments of 8%. So sometimes it's as much as 20 or 25% increase on Bing, but across the whole, hundreds of advertisers, we're averaging about an 8% increase, every 2 weeks on our adCenter spend.
So, in other words, advertisers who are advertising on both Google and Yahoo and Bing Yahoo are experiencing greater ROI with more than a proportionate amount of their budget allocated to the Search Alliance network.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that's all, on a performance basis. Our ultimate goal is to deliver the highest ROI, lowest CPAs for our customers, and we're just finding more and more that giving more of that budget to Bing is helping us to achieve those goals.
Yeah, and really that's supported by the data that has come out. It's neat starting a new year and getting to see all of the analyzation from the whole previous year, the year in search. There's been a bunch of information to come out, and a lot of it is pointing toward what we have seen in our marketplace that Matt just described.
Yeah, so this is ComScore data published January 2012, so I assume it's looking back at 2011, but, searchers on Search Alliance, the Bing Yahoo property, spending about 6% more than Google searchers in the U.S., and they spend 23% more than the average searcher, which I don't know how they actually define average searcher, but they broke those two things out as separate categories. But in general,
I was wondering that too.
That's what we see for e-commerce especially is, both better conversion rates and higher average spend, so they buy bigger ticket items when they come from Search Alliance as opposed to Google.
Right, and Search Frontier actually released a report as well, and this is for Q4, so, things were trending this way even stronger, it looks like, toward the end of the year. So revenue per click on Yahoo Bing as opposed to Google, as well as return on investment.
Yeah, so you're seeing 14% better revenue per click on Search Alliance and 9% higher ROI. So, and these are numbers that are coming from eFrontier, which is pretty big click volume. They've got a good basis to make some of these assertions, and it's really interesting. I think it's starting to shape the way people think about the two major players in the search space.
And this really ties back to what we were saying before about the audience, that these are people who are ready to make decisions, and so, it makes sense that that their revenue per click is higher. These are people ready to convert, right, John?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think people really find tremendous value from advertising on Bing and Yahoo, and it's so similar to just get your campaigns moved over, to expand into it. There's some differences definitely to get kind of the most out of it, but people find tremendous value out of Bing and Yahoo.
Absolutely. This is an interesting other data point here. What we're seeing is right in line with what you'd think, as you've got more people seeing these great results on Search Alliance. What you are seeing is a slight increase in the average cost per click. Our message here is really that now's the time. We've got about half of you on this webinar that are currently advertising. That's great. The other half of you, you've either tried this in the past or you haven't, but you're interested. We see this as a trend where if you get in now, you're doing the right optimization, you're learning the nuances of the adCenter platform, you're going to be able to capitalize before this, the average cost per clicks on adCenter continue to increase. And we do see, currently that in some verticals, it's on parity with what we see for cost per click costs in Google, but in others, there's still some real gold mines, especially as you get longer tail on adCenter. You can still find some of those really cheap and high converting clicks, and now it's time to get in there, set up your campaign, and optimize, as people are hearing these statistics and flocking more and more of their ad dollars to the adCenter platform.
And we'll also dive into that a little bit later and show specifically some results on where your ads, where ad placement, where you fall for the same budget in the results page. So, bottom line, adCenter can help you maximize your paid search ROI. You have an expanded audience. We have over 50 million users who are not searching on Google, and so far we've seen higher conversion rates overall.
Seems like a winning formula.
It does indeed. All right. So we are going to move on to some of the specific features that adCenter has to offer. But before we do, we want to go ahead and ask you guys another question, and that is what your monthly paid search budget is. How much do you have going into Google, Bing, Yahoo? Ask.
Yeah, so this is combined budget, not necessarily just adCenter budget, but what's your overall, budget for search?
All right.
It's like a pretty high variety of results here. Some big spenders down to some small business spenders, and looks pretty good.
All right. Well, the great thing about this is that these are tools we're going to discuss that will work for any budget, that can help maximize the results that you're getting from whatever your ad spend is. So specifically, what we decided to highlight today is Microsoft has released their new advertising intelligence tool, which is a great tool for developing keyword lists and strategies, optimizing your campaigns, tailoring your bidding strategies, and evaluating campaign performance. So if you haven't used this tool yet, it's definitely one that you're going to want to check out.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. This is really kind of a hidden gem, I think, of a tool that we have in our arsenal. I'll say arsenal, but it actually it's a plugin that you can just go in and download right into Excel. And so when you're doing a lot of changes, maybe you have some things that you've moved over from AdWords Editor or just in general, there's some really powerful things that you can do here. There's a lot of really great keyword suggestion tools, some keyword opportunities that you can identify. But one of my favorites is this one called the Associated Keywords function. And basically all it does is it looks across all of adCenter, and it looks into for any given keyword, campaigns and ad groups that actually contain that same keyword. And so if you're doing skydiving in an ad group and somebody else has parachuting or tandem skydive, then it'll actually give you that list of keywords. And so it's a really fantastic place to get great ideas on what keyword strategies and what other keywords you could be identifying. And then there's a lot of other functions this tool has. So,
sorry, John, I just got too excited there, but I really like this because there's a lot of keyword tools out there that use kind of root keyword, kind of Latin roots for keyword generation and different semantic pairings. This is interesting because you guys have such a big network looking across all AdCenter advertisers that you get to see that really human way where, skydiving and parachuting don't share any of the same linguistic roots or anything, where some of those tools won't find those put them in the same bucket. You guys do that because you see how humans have actually constructed campaigns, which I think is really clever and unearths some interesting keywords.
No, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, it's something where I think a lot of people want to know, hey, what should I be looking at, or what are people like me actually doing? And it's just another way to get that information, which is really cool. And then another thing that you can do is you can actually see how many searches are being done on this set of keywords. So you can just easily highlight all the keywords that you actually want to get these numbers from. Then you just go ahead and you just run this function. It's something we call traffic. But basically, it's just going to give you the number of searches being done on Bing and Yahoo. Really great information, really great insights. Actually, if you're an agency, it's a really good tool to get an idea for trends. So, hey, I'm trying to talk to my customer or my client, or I'm a small business. I want to know how many people are searching in my area. You can do a lot of customization on it, and you can actually just get the number of searches that people are doing on Bing and Yahoo, and it gives you a really, I wouldn't say exact number, but a really close number versus a really rounded number that Google will give you sometimes.
Yeah, this seems like a very helpful tool to optimize your campaigns, even if you're just getting started, whether you're a savvy paid search advertiser, that this gives you those insights that, like Matt was saying, that you just couldn't develop on your own. It gives you that information of what's actually working out there.
Another thing I think we're seeing in some of the question boxes, and I think people might be scratching their head a little bit, where can they, we went right into singing the praises of these tools, but John, do you have a mental map in your head of how people can get to this tool and download it to use in Excel?
Yeah, actually, so for those who have AdCenter accounts, if you log into AdCenter and you go to this tab, it's called the Tools tab, there's a set of all the tools. And the Microsoft Advertising Intelligence tool, that's what it'll be, will actually be right there. And so that's one easy way to get it. Another way is just to type in Microsoft Ad Intelligence, and then you'll be able to get that in Bing or Google. It'll actually come up. Download the tool. It's free and easy to use.
Great, and Alex is actually going to send out the link right now for everyone over chat. And yeah, you just download it, and it works with your Excel. So you have all of that data. You can save it on your desktop. You have access to it. You can compare different times.
So let's talk a little bidding strategy here. What does the Ad Intelligence tool tell us about bidding?
The Ad Intelligence tool actually really reveals a lot for any given keyword. And you can be really specific and say, hey, I want to know for any given keyword, tandem skydive, for exact match, on position 1, what is the number of, what kind of click volume can I expect? What kind of CPC can I expect? What does the average bid actually look like? And it'll give you all this information. And right here, this is for all match types for all positions. What does the landscape look like for the different keywords? And it's really, really rich data because it tells you on average for any given keyword like skydiving, CPCs are 45 cents. But then for other keywords like skydive, the average bid you can see is $2.60. So people are being a little bit more competitive on that keyword, but maybe there's not as many searches and not as much clicks coming through that. And so it gives you a lot of really great information to say, hey, here are the keywords I want to bid on, but here's where I should be for my position. Here's about how much I should pay, or here's how much I should bid to be able to get this amount of clicks. Really rich data, really gives a really clear picture into the auction, which I don't think any other tool that I know of in the industry gives a clear picture directly from the engine.
Yep, we rely on this tool a lot of times here when we're, asked to do kind of forecasting exercises, and it is interesting to see, both in terms of volume prediction and average CPC prediction, this tool seems to be more accurate than others available.
And, Matt mentioned that we use it here at Trada, and we are going to take a few minutes to tell you about how Trada helps to optimize your paid search campaign over the various search networks. So while Matt is going through that, please continue to ask your questions. We've been seeing some great ones come in over the chat, and Matt and John will get to your questions in just a few minutes.
Yeah, we should have plenty of time for some of these good questions that are coming in. If you're not seeing answers, kind of questions being answered as we're all speaking here, we are cataloging them and saving them for the end.
Yeah, so keep them coming.
All right, so a little bit about Trada, and I gave the kind of quick preamble. We're, I think, the world's first crowdsourced paid search marketplace. When we talk about crowdsourcing, we have a crowd of over 2,000 dispersed paid search experts. They're primarily based in the U.S., although we do have a global component. These folks are AdWords certified. We look at their background, and what we do is we pair them with campaigns. So as we learn who has strengths in e-commerce or lead generation or B2B specialties, we bring in advertisers. We pair a number of optimizers with these advertisers to execute their PPC strategy, and then we run those strategies across both Google and AdCenter. So really powerful stuff. It's awesome as a search marketer. I'm sure all of you, as you're writing ad copy and thinking of keywords, you get stuck in your own head, right? We all bring our specific biases to how we execute a search campaign. And the thing I love best about the Trada model is watching 5 people take vastly different approaches to solving the same problems. You get this really interesting group of keywords that there's some overlap, but there's some that is different. You get a lot of different perspectives in ad copy, and you can really appeal to a much wider audience because maybe your campaign is now being optimized by some men, some women, older, younger. You get all those different opinions, and you really cover the bases of everyone who might be looking for your product.
Just thinking about your product, your service in a way that you may have never even thought of before.
Yeah.
Really have that diversity of thinking, and having all of those people running your, doing ads for the various networks as well. So you not only get the benefit of having multiple optimizers working on your campaign, but also getting to see how they're performing on the different search engines.
Absolutely. So, here's one of our, just like an ad position graph. It'd be one of, many data points that we give you in a Trada campaign. And we break everything down so you can see, of all the impressions you've gotten in a window of time, how many of them were Google, how many of them were Bing, Yahoo, and what average position did those impressions come in at. So here, obviously, this campaign is running with an average position of 3 for both Google and Bing. And a lot of times we'll see, and you can even see it here, right? This is skewed where there's a lot, the Bing traffic is between positions 1 and 5 primarily. The Google traffic, well, a lot of it comes in position 3. There's also a lot more 5, 6, 7. That may be an indication that Google's a little more expensive in this vertical, and maybe you do want to shift a little more of that budget to Bing.
Exactly. And so not only what ad position your results come up, but what % of your daily spend. So this is the 70-30 that we talked about earlier, where you start off kind of reflecting the market, but your actual spend is going to vary depending on what's converting.
That's right. So bigger and smaller days in terms of how the budget is actually spent, and a lot of that dictated by this algorithm that's going to try to maximize your ad spend where you're actually converting.
Mm-hmm. And just a quick summary, just showing you briefly all of the different data points that you are able to see, and the one that we all care about, conversion.
A conversion chart, and looks like Bing in this instance is driving a majority of the conversion. So again, we're shifting more budget that way and making the campaign a little more profitable by spending money in the right place.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned this earlier, but I just wanted Matt to talk for a moment about the automatic network adjustment that happens here.
Yep. So the graphs that you're seeing here are CPA data points over a couple-month period of time. This is interesting because we saw, in this period, we've got some places where we made some budget adjustments. We started to see great results on Bing. We adjust the proportions. I think in this case, I ended up starting 70-30 and finishing, so 70% Google, 30% Bing, or adCenter Search Alliance. And they ended up being almost the full reverse. 65% of the spend by the time we were done making the adjustments was being spent on Search Alliance, only 35% on Google. So for those of you that are out there in that kind of small search budget category, I know a lot of you were anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. Every dollar is precious, so spend it in the right place, and that's really the message that we're talking about here. Is adCenter a better place dollar for dollar? Now, if you've got big budgets, you're 100,000 plus, maybe you need to run big campaigns on both engines. If you've got a finite budget, figure out how to optimize that budget so you're spending your dollars in the right place. Obviously, for this advertiser, the movement of more budget proportionally to Search Alliance helped to drive down that CPA quite a bit.
Right. And again, Matt mentioned, but just want to go into just a little bit more detail about who works on your campaign. The optimizers, we have over 2,000 of them, and these people live, breathe paid search. And they also work on a performance basis, and what a lot of people are interested in is how much control is there, how involved you as the advertiser are in the process. And here you can see that there's complete transparency into who is working on your campaign. These are your optimizers. It tells you how they're performing. You can talk with them directly, and you can really see how everything is doing at everything from the keyword level to the network level to your campaign overall.
Yep, we believe that transparency is important in any search campaign, especially if you've got 4 or 5 or 7 different people helping you to actually execute your search strategy, by way of a Trada campaign and having these optimizers. So you want to see what each of them are doing. What was their keyword strategy? What's their ad copy look like? And as an advertiser, we really stress that transparency and also control, that you approve all this content before it goes live. So if an optimizer, creates 500 keywords for your campaign and you don't like a handful of them, you see those before any money is spent. And you give them feedback so they better understand your business and can really optimize towards your goals.
Yep. All right, so that's a bit about Trada. So we are just about to get to questions, just to cover what we've discussed. Bing and Yahoo, a great way to expand your audience, oftentimes to attract higher quality, higher performing traffic, especially as you get more advanced and really take advantage of the tools that adCenter has to offer, and really get good at targeting that audience. And that's through the advertiser-friendly features and enhancements that adCenter has been coming out with really regularly this year. There have just been a ton lately. Check out the adCenter blog for a complete listing of new releases.
Yeah, we should post a link to the adCenter blog. It is really interesting just to see the speed at which they're releasing some of this stuff. And for those of you that fall into that bucket of tried adCenter in the past but aren't using it currently, now's a great time to check it out again without evangelizing, too hard on John. I'm taking your job over here. But I do think now's a great time to kind of, revisit that. There's been a ton of changes. I think it's way easier to set up and execute really robust campaigns on adCenter than it's been since adCenter was born.
Absolutely. And everyone who registered for the webinar, you will be receiving a link to the recording as well as the slides, and we'll go ahead and include that link to the adCenter blog as well, and anything else that John and Matt think might be helpful. So you'll be receiving that later today. And then, Trada, a great way to advertise on all 3 of the search engines.
Yeah, if you want one platform to execute your strategy with the help of some pay-per-click search experts, Trada can certainly show you how to do that. I know we've got some questions about Trada. We've got some questions about adCenter.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get to the questions. All right. Analia sorry if I mispronounced your name. Analia asks, my biggest challenge with AdCenter performance right now is volume. While I get a good CVR, my volume of impressions and conversions is about 10 times smaller than Google's. Any suggestions? John?
Yeah, you know, I think I'll handle that one. I think that's a really great question. I think there are a number of different things that you can do. I think there's a lot of tools that I think we hide a little bit more. One of them is a search query report, and so you can get the list of all the searches that people are actually looking at by keyword in the search query report, and so you can get that and find that on the reports tab and find a really great way to get negative keywords, but B, find keywords you're missing out on or you're not putting explicit bids behind, and then those keywords might be working. And for us, I think there's a lot of volume on the higher positions, actually. And so if you can find those keywords that work, bid up a little bit more if they work for you, you actually get a lot more impressions and a lot more click volume.
I can second that last opinion. It's kind of an insider tip. I think in Google there's so many impressions for sure, just in terms of outright volume. Sometimes you can afford to run a pretty successful campaign in position 5 or 6. I think what we see in AdCenter is be a little more aggressive with the bidding, even if it puts you into a place where you're bidding more on AdCenter than you are on Google. Getting into those top 3 to 4 positions gets you a little more exposure, and what you're banking on is that the click's going to be a little more valuable, that you're going to get a little higher conversion rate, so it's worth it to pay for those top positions.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks. Michael asks, thanks for mentioning B2B. We are interested in Bing as we see it as more B2B oriented with its link to Microsoft in the business world. We'd love to hear about some tips specific to using Bing to advertise to businesses and institutions. The B2B advertiser seems to usually get lost in the consumer-targeted advertising. Great question.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think when it comes to B2B, one of the number one things you have to work really, really hard on and consistently work hard on is ad copy. Differentiating your message. And really, when it comes to that, the keyword strategy and the ad copy are just incredibly important in making sure that people know what they're getting before they click. And then also that the intent on the specific sets of keywords that are maybe more B2B oriented on search, that you're really focusing and doubling down on those searches.
Yeah, I agree on the ad copy thing. I think that's really how you're going to differentiate that audience. A lot of language, get so-and-so for your business, and making sure that the searcher immediately is going to see that this is business focused. Making that very implicit in the ad copy is one thing. The other thing, while it probably means you're going to sacrifice some volume, is we'll typically pursue strategies that are more kind of heavy in the exact match types. A lot of times in B2B, if you're in broad or phrase, you end up getting cross-served with some things that might dilute that B2B audience. So if you're absolutely dead focused on B2B, I'd say bias it with a little more exact match, search keywords, and then make sure that ad copy is nice and tight.
John, did you have something?
Yeah, actually, I think that's Matt, that's spot on. Picking your keywords is incredibly important, picking the right ones for B2B. And then this gets again into the bid. And so when you're going against the consumers, the click-through rate for consumer ads for any given kind of search is typically going to be higher. And so for B2B, especially when there's that mixture of, a good example would be, I used to work with a lot of PC security types of folks like McAfee and Symantec and Microsoft Security Essentials. And they all have their consumer Norton antivirus types of things, and they have their enterprise version. And so they would have searches where they'd have both. They're trying to kind of separate their B2B message from their consumer message. It was really important to pick the right keywords, know that the click-through rate for the B2B message was going to be lower, but the overall value that you'd be getting when you got one of those leads was incredibly high. And so making sure that your bid strategy behind that matched.
Great. Good advice. Okay, nice. Thanks. Well, Ashley has a question, and I know that this is a common thing that paid search advertisers do is moving their campaign from AdWords into AdCenter. So Ashley wants to know, what are some of the pitfalls that advertisers need to watch out for when importing keywords or negative keywords, ad groups, campaigns, or ads from Google to the Search Alliance?
Ashley, this is a fantastic question, and it's actually something that we have worked incredibly hard. So when I talk about all the changes that we've made, and I think we're going to have a really big summer towards the end of the summer too, as far as changes that are coming through. So a lot to be said there still. But in the past, one of the things that we didn't do is we didn't have negative exact match keywords, and so those would get ignored when you tried to import them. And also, we didn't have broad modified keywords, and those would get ignored. Now, we actually, in November, we released a negative exact match, and then now, gosh, I want to say last week, we released broad modified. And so when you look at those different sets of keywords that you're going to be importing, before we used to have errors with those. Now they actually just all come right in. And so there's been a lot of things that we've changed. And if you haven't imported your campaign recently, I would highly suggest you do it. We have tons of import wizards, but literally you can download your Google account, export it in AdWords Editor, and import it using our wizard in AdCenter, and it's really, really quick. And a lot of those things that are common pitfalls, we've fixed, and actually shouldn't cause you any more issues.
What do you think, John? 15 minutes, less than an hour to switch, at least
it'll take imported? 5 to 10 minutes. The things that we don't actually import will be things like site links or site extensions. Those right now we don't, but your keywords will be there. You might want to take a look at some of the geo targeting settings if you're really kind of have a robust geo strategy. Those won't necessarily all transfer over. And so, I mean, the process of importing can take 5 to 10 minutes. All the little pitfalls that Ashley is actually getting to could just take a few minutes afterwards, depending on how complex your campaigns are. But if you have just a regular keyword targeted strategy to like the U.S. with your ad copy, that'll import within 5 to 10 minutes. It's really quick.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, the improvements just have been coming out at neck-breaking speed. So we'll definitely get a link up so people can look over those. And we have one more question that we are going to answer, which is, how does Trada make money? How does Trada make money, Matt?
Funny you should ask. Yes, we are a for-profit business, and we like to share in our advertisers' success. So it really is a kind of performance-based marketplace. Our idea is we work with advertisers to set both CPC targets around kind of average and max CPCs, and then we have a CPA target, and the goal of the optimizers and Trada both are to achieve conversions below your CPA target. We keep the difference of whatever that spread is, and that's split between the optimizers and Trada. So we work with you to set a CPA that we feel like is realistic, that's going to help you meet your business goals, and as we are succeeding in delivering conversions under that goal, we take that, and between the optimizers that work in the marketplace and Trada, we split that, and that's how Trada makes money.
So both the optimizers working on your campaign and Trada itself are directly incentivized to perform, to beat your conversion rates. Really sounds like a win-win.
Absolutely.
If you are interested in hearing how Trada could potentially work for your advertising needs, please go ahead and email me at sfox@trada.com or visit us at trada.com/learn-more. Also, you will be receiving a follow-up email with the information covered in today's webinar. And I would really like to thank John and Matt for sharing your expertise and wisdom with us and helping us improve our paid search campaigns today. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. And with the amount of folks on here that are already Bing advertisers, we may circulate to this audience a kind of 201 presentation, who knows, on some actual tips and tricks and go through some of the new features and functions that AdCenter offers. We'll have to see what our webinar calendar looks like, but sounds like it might be interesting to a lot of you.
That sounds like a fantastic idea. Thank you, John. very much.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. And Matt, that actually sounds like a fantastic idea. If it actually ends up being something that your users would love to go over, we could do that. There's going to be a lot of changes. Definitely a lot to talk about already so far. But I really had a good time, and thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
And thanks everyone for joining us. This is the end of the webinar.